The mining colony on Kepler 442b had been silent for 3 days when the Zephyrian patrol ship detected the distress beacon. Commander Vex's 4 arms worked the control panels with practiced efficiency, his serpentine body coiled in the captain's chair. The readings made no sense. Every biosignature on the planet showed as terminated except for one small, weak signal in the northern continent. "Impossible," hissed Lieutenant Cross, her scaled head tilting as she studied the scanner data. "The Mordak hunting pack we tracked to this system, numbered over 200. Nothing survives their feeding frenzies." Vextal's yellow eyes narrowed. The Mordak were legends of terror across 17 star systems, standing 8 feet tall with razor-sharp claws, armored hide thick enough to stop plasma bolts, and pack intelligence that made them the galaxy's most feared predators. They had wiped out entire civilizations. The human mining colony of New Terra had been doomed the moment the pack arrived. "Take us down to investigate," Vextal ordered. "But stay ready for immediate departure." The Zephyrian ship descended through the planet's atmosphere, passing over the scattered remains of human settlements. Twisted metal and scorched earth marked where homes and facilities once stood. Bodies lay torn and partially consumed, evidence of the Mordak's efficient hunting methods. As they approached the coordinates of the surviving biosignature, Vexistal's breath caught in his throat. In a vast clearing surrounded by jagged rocks and dead trees, nearly 200 Mordak sat in perfect formation. Their massive forms created concentric circles around something at the center, their predatory eyes all focused inward with an intensity he had never seen before. "What are they doing?" whispered Cross, her voice barely audible over the ship's humming systems. Through the ship's enhanced optical sensors, Vexatl zoomed in on the center of the formation. What he saw defied everything he knew about Mordak behavior. A small human child, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, sat cross-legged in the dirt. The child appeared unharmed, even clean, with bright blonde hair catching the alien sun's light. But that wasn't the impossible part. The child was speaking to the Mordak, and they were listening. Vexistal had studied Mordak behavior for decades. They were pure killing machines, driven by hunger and pack instinct. They communicated through guttural roars and aggressive posturing. They showed no mercy, felt no emotion beyond rage and bloodlust. Yet here they sat, motionless as statues, their attention completely captured by the small human. "Commander," Cross said, her voice shaking. "The thermal readings show the Mordak have been in this position for over 48 hours. They haven't moved to hunt, feed, or even rest." The child stood up, brushing dirt from her simple blue dress. She walked toward the nearest Mordak, a massive alpha male with scars covering his armored hide. The creature could have torn her apart with a single swipe of his claws, yet he remained perfectly still as she approached. The girl reached up and placed her small hand on the Mordak's snout. The predator's eyes closed, and what sounded like a purr rumbled from deep within his chest. Around the circle, other Mordak began making similar sounds, a harmonic vibration that Vexitol had never heard from their species. "This is impossible," he muttered, adjusting the ship's audio sensors to pick up the child's voice. "My name is Emma," the girl was saying, her words clear despite her young age. "I know you're hungry, and I know you're scared. You don't have to be either anymore." Scared? Vextal's mind reeled. Mordak didn't experience fear. They were the thing other species feared. The alpha Mordak opened his eyes and looked down at Emma. When he spoke, his voice was different from any Mordak vocalization on record. Instead of a roar or growl, he produced sounds that almost resembled words, though in no language Vextal recognized. Emma smiled and nodded as if she understood perfectly. She turned to address the entire gathering, her small voice somehow carrying across the clearing. "I know what happened to your homeworld," she said. "I know about the sickness that made you so angry you couldn't think straight. I know about the pain that drives you to hunt and never feel satisfied." The Mordak began to shift, but not with aggression. Their movements seemed almost ashamed, heads lowering as the child spoke. "You're not monsters," Emma continued. "You're just hurt. And hurt things hurt other things because they don't know how else to make the pain stop." Vexistal's translator struggled with the Mordak's response, producing only fragments. Words like plague, madness, and forgive flickered across his screen. The girl walked among the massive predators, touching each one she passed. Where her hand made contact, the Mordak's aggressive posture melted away. Their razor claws retracted, Their lips covered their sharp fangs. The red glow of perpetual fury faded from their eyes. "How is this possible?" Cross whispered. "Humans are barely civilized themselves. Their species only achieved spaceflight 2 centuries ago." Vextal didn't answer because he had no answer. Every xenobiology textbook in the galaxy stated that Mordak were incapable of higher reasoning, communication beyond basic pack signals, or any emotion, except rage. Yet here was a human child treating them like wounded animals in need of comfort. Emma returned to the center of the circle and sat down again. The Mordak leaned forward, hanging on her every word as she began what sounded like a story. "Once upon a time," she said, "there was a beautiful planet covered in silver trees and crystal rivers. The creatures who lived there were strong and proud and took care of each other like a big family." Several Mordak made soft, whimpering sounds. Vexital's audio analysis showed the frequencies were consistent with grief and mourning, emotions his equipment insisted the species was incapable of experiencing. But then came the poison rain from the dying star, Emma continued. It made everyone sick and angry and confused. Families fought with each other. Friends became enemies. The strong hurt the weak because the pain was so terrible they couldn't remember how to be kind. The Alpha Mordak lowered his massive head until it touched the ground near Emma's feet. His shoulders shook in what could only be described as sobbing. "The poison made them forget who they really were," Emma said softly. "It made them think the only way to survive was to destroy everything else, so they left their beautiful home and wandered the stars, trying to fill the empty place where love used to be with violence and destruction." Vextal found himself leaning forward, caught up in the child's narrative despite himself. Around the clearing, every Mordak had gone completely still, their attention absolute. "But the poison is starting to fade," Emma said, reaching out to touch the Alpha's scarred snout again. "Deep down, they remember what they used to be. They remember loving their families. They remember protecting the small and weak, instead of hurting them." The Mordak's response was unlike anything in the xenobiological databases. They began to sing, if the word could apply to the haunting harmonic sounds they produced. The melody was alien but unmistakably beautiful, filled with longing and loss and hope. Emma smiled and began to hum along, her young voice weaving through their song like a silver thread through dark fabric. The sound sent chills down Vexistal's spine and brought tears to cross his reptilian eyes. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing, the impossible scene continued. The galaxy's most feared predators sat in peaceful communion with a small human child, their savage nature apparently transformed by nothing more than kindness and understanding. Vextal realized he was witnessing something that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans, about Mordak, and about the nature of violence itself. This small girl had done something that entire military fleets had failed to accomplish. She had found a way to reach the lost souls buried beneath the Mordak's savage exterior. But questions plagued his mind. How did she know about their history? How could she communicate with them? And most importantly, what did this mean for the hundreds of other Mordak packs terrorizing the galaxy? As night fell over Kepler 442b, Vexal made a decision that would echo across the stars. Instead of reporting what he had seen, he settled in to observe and learn. Whatever was happening in that clearing was bigger than first contact protocols or military procedures. It was the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history. Dawn broke over Kepler 442b with an eerie silence that made Commander Vexistal's scales itch with nervousness. For the first time in recorded history, a Mordak pack had gone an entire night without hunting. The thermal sensors showed they hadn't moved from their positions around the human child, maintaining their vigil through the darkness. Emma stirred as the first rays of sunlight touched her face. The Mordak immediately became alert, but their attention was protective rather than predatory. The massive alpha male positioned himself to shield her from the morning wind, while others arranged themselves to provide shade as the temperature rose. "Good morning, Thraktar," Emma said, somehow knowing the alpha's name despite no formal introduction. She stretched like any child waking from sleep, showing no fear of being surrounded by creatures that could tear apart armored vehicles. The alpha, Thraktar, responded with a series of low rumbles that Vexistal's translator now recognized as actual language. The grammar was complex, the vocabulary sophisticated. Everything the Galactic Science Council believed about Mordak intelligence was wrong. "I slept well too," Emma replied, standing and smoothing her dress. "Are you ready to remember more?" Thraktar nodded, a gesture that should have been impossible for a species supposedly driven only by instinct. The other Mordak shifted forward eagerly, their eyes bright with an intelligence that previous encounters had never revealed. From his ship's concealed position, Vexatal activated every recording device available. The Galactic Council would need proof of what was happening here, even if they refused to believe it. Emma walked to a flat patch of ground and began drawing in the dirt with a stick. Her movements were deliberate, creating symbols that resembled star charts. As she worked, she spoke in the same calm voice that had captivated the Mordak the previous day. "Your world orbited a red giant called Kethmoran," she said, adding details to her drawing. "The star was dying, pumping out radiation that poisoned everything in the system. But it wasn't supposed to happen so quickly." Several Mordak made questioning sounds. Emma nodded gravely. "Someone made it worse. The void touched wanted to harvest the star's energy, so they destabilized it on purpose. They knew it would kill everyone on your planet, but they didn't care." Vextal's blood ran cold. The void touched were a myth, a boogeyman story told to frighten young spacers. Ancient beings of pure energy who consumed stars and left dead systems in their wake. No credible scientist believed they existed, but the Mordak's reaction suggested otherwise. Thraktar threw back his massive head and roared, not with mindless rage but with the fury of understanding. The sound was picked up by his pack, creating a chorus of anguish that echoed across the barren landscape. "Yes," Emma said softly. "Now you remember who your real enemy is." She stood and faced the pack, her small form dwarfed by their massive bodies but somehow commanding their complete attention. "The radiation didn't just make you sick," she continued. "It made you forget. It buried your memories, your culture, your love for each other under layers of pain and anger. For 300 years, you've been wandering the galaxy trying to satisfy a hunger that can't be filled with food or conquest." Lieutenant Cross leaned over Vextal's shoulder, her scaled face pale with shock. "Commander, if she's right about the void touched, then every attack the Mordak have made has been misdirected vengeance," Vextal finished. "They've been lashing out at innocent species while their true enemy remains hidden." Emma knelt beside Thraktar and placed both hands on his massive arm. "You've been looking for home in all the wrong places. Destroying other worlds can't bring back the one you lost, but there is another way." The Alpha Mordak lowered his head until he was eye level with the child. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight of centuries. "Little speaker," the translator interpreted, struggling with concepts that had no equivalent in galactic standard. "How do we heal what has been broken for so long?" Emma smiled, and Vextal was struck by how ancient her expression seemed despite her young age. "The same way you heal any wound, with time, care, and the right medicine." She reached into a pocket of her dress and pulled out something that made every Mordak in the clearing gasp. It was a small crystal, no larger than her thumb, that pulsed with soft blue light. "This is from your world," she said simply, "before the poison. When I touch it, I can see what Kethmoran was like when the silver trees grew and the crystal rivers sang." Thraktar's massive claws, which could shred starship hulls, delicately accepted the crystal. The moment it touched his skin, his entire body shuddered. Tears began streaming down his scarred face, and he made sounds of joy mixed with grief. The crystal was passed from Mordak to Mordak, each one having the same reaction. Memories flooded back, washing away 3 centuries of pain-induced madness. They remembered their true names, their families, their purpose as guardians of their world's natural beauty. But with memory came greater anguish. They remembered every innocent life they had taken in their confused wandering. Every civilization they had destroyed while searching for something they couldn't name. The weight of their unintended crimes brought the mighty warriors to their knees. Emma moved among them, offering comfort with gentle touches and soft words. "The guilt you feel proves you're not the monsters you thought you were. Real monsters don't feel sorry for the pain they cause." "But how can we live with what we have done?" Thraktar asked, his voice breaking. "By making sure it never happens again," Emma replied. "By protecting instead of destroying. By using your strength to fight the ones who really hurt you." She turned to address the entire pack. "The void touched are still out there, still consuming stars and destroying worlds. They think they've won because they turned the galaxy's greatest guardians into its greatest threat. But they're wrong." The Mordak began to stir with new purpose. The aimless rage that had driven them for centuries was transforming into focused determination. You want to honor the memory of your world? Emma continued. Then save others from the same fate. Become what you were always meant to be. Become protectors again. Thraktar rose to his full height, his scarred armor catching the sunlight. Little speaker speaks truth. We have been lost, but now we remember. We are Mordak Tel, the Star Guardians. We will hunt the true darkness. The pack's response was immediate and unanimous. They formed ranks with military precision, their chaotic nature replaced by disciplined purpose. In minutes, they had organized into tactical units, each with specific roles and responsibilities, but their preparation was interrupted by alarms from Vextal's ship. Long-range sensors detected incoming vessels, moving at impossible speeds through hyperspace. The energy signatures matched nothing in known databases, composed of frequencies that seemed to bend reality itself. Void touched, Emma said quietly, though she was too far away for the ship's sensors to have picked up her words. They felt the awakening. They're coming to finish what they started. The Mordak pack tensed for battle, but Emma raised her hand for patience. Not yet, she said. First you need to remember everything, and the galaxy needs to know the truth. She looked directly at Vextal's hidden ship, her young eyes somehow finding his location despite the advanced cloaking technology. Commander Vextal of the Zephyrian patrol ship Harmony's Edge, she called out clearly. It's time for you to join us. The galaxy is about to learn that humans aren't just another species that got lucky with technology. Vextal's hands froze over the controls. How could she possibly know his name, or his ship's designation? He had maintained complete communication silence and his vessel's stealth systems were military grade. The Void touched are coming, Emma continued, and when they arrive, you're going to understand why the universe made sure a human child was the only survivor of this colony. The approaching ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, their forms impossible to focus on, as if reality itself rejected their presence. They moved toward Kepler 442b, with predatory intent. Drawn by the same awakening that had restored the Mordak's memories, Vextal realized he had a choice to make. He could maintain his observer status and watch events unfold, or he could trust a human child who had somehow accomplished the impossible and join forces with the galaxy's most feared predators. The incoming Void touched made his decision for him. Whatever Emma was, whatever she represented, she was about to face beings of incredible power, and despite everything he had been taught about human capabilities, something deep in his military instincts told him that she was their best hope for survival. He powered up the ship's engines and prepared to decloak. The galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. A Zephyrian commander, a pack of reformed Mordak warriors, and a human child, standing together against entities that existed before the first stars formed. The real battle was about to begin. The Harmony's Edge materialized above the clearing like a metal phoenix emerging from nothingness. Commander Vextal felt his ship shudder as reality itself seemed to resist the approach of the Void-touched vessels. Their forms defied optical sensors, appearing as tears in space that hurt to observe directly. Emma looked up at his ship and smiled, waving as if greeting an old friend. Thank you for choosing correctly, Commander. Your people's courage will be remembered when this is over. Vextal activated his ship's external speakers. Child, I don't understand what's happening here, but my sensors show those incoming vessels are beyond anything in our military databases. We need to evacuate immediately. No, Emma replied calmly. We need to stand our ground. This is where it ends. The Mordak pack had formed a defensive perimeter around Emma, their recently remembered military training evident in their precise movements. Thraktar approached the hovering ship, his massive frame impressive even from Vextal's elevated position. Skyrider, the Alpha called out in heavily accented galactic standard. Little speaker has shown us truth. We ask you trust as we have learned to trust. Lieutenant Cross was frantically working her console. Commander, I'm reading massive energy buildups from the approaching vessels. Whatever they're planning to do to this planet, it's going to make the Mordak attacks look like minor skirmishes. Emma stood and brushed dirt from her dress one final time. As she did, something fundamental changed about her presence. The air around her began to shimmer with energy that Vextal's instruments couldn't identify. Her young voice carried impossible authority when she spoke. Void touched, she called out to the approaching ships, though they were still hours away from the planet. I know you can hear me across the quantum foam. I am Emma Chen, 7th daughter of the 7th daughter, Born under the convergence of 3 stars, I invoke the ancient compact. The response was immediate and terrifying. Reality warped around the clearing as something vast and alien focused its attention on the small girl. When the voice came, it seemed to speak from the fabric of space itself. Impossible. The words crashed over them like a physical force. The compact was broken millennia ago. The Guardians are extinct. Emma's smile was sad but resolute. The Guardians never died. We just learned to hide better. Vexistal felt his understanding of the universe cracking apart. Guardians? What Guardians? Every species that achieves spaceflight eventually learns the same truth, Emma explained, her childish appearance now clearly revealed as camouflage. The universe isn't empty. It's full of old things that view younger species as food or entertainment. Most civilizations become their prey. The void-touched ships accelerated, their reality-bending engines bringing them closer with each pulse. But some species develop differently. Instead of just growing technologically, they grow in other ways. They learn to touch the quantum substrate that underlies all existence. They become something more than flesh and metal. Thraktar roared, understanding. Little speaker is like the bright ones from the old stories, the ones who walked between stars without ships. Humans call them psychics, telepaths, espers. Emma continued, power beginning to radiate from her small form. Other species have different names, but we're all variations of the same evolutionary response to cosmic predators. The first void-touched vessel entered the planet's atmosphere, its presence making the sky twist into impossible colors. Vexistal's instruments screamed warnings as fundamental forces went haywire in its vicinity. The compact was simple, Emma said, rising several feet off the ground without any visible means of support. Leave the younger species alone, and the Guardians will stay hidden. Hunt them, and face the consequences. The weak child thinks to threaten us. The alien voice was filled with contempt. We consumed the light of 1 billion stars before your species learned to make fire. Emma's response was to smile and extend her consciousness across space. Every human within 50 light-years suddenly felt her presence, a warm touch in their minds that carried a simple message: it's time to stop hiding. The effect was instantaneous and galaxy-wide. Humans who had spent their lives concealing unusual abilities suddenly blazed with unleashed power. Terraforming engineers who had always seemed unnaturally good at their jobs revealed they could literally speak to planets. Ship navigators who found impossible routes through hyperspace admitted they could see the currents of space-time. Military strategists who won battles they should have lost confessed they could glimpse fragments of the future. Across 1,000 worlds, humanity revealed itself as something far more than another species that had gotten lucky with technology. They were the universe's answer to ancient predators, evolved specifically to stand against the darkness between stars. The Mordak pack felt the change immediately. The crystal Emma had shown them blazed with reflected power, and suddenly they could see the quantum connections that linked all living things. Their own dormant psychic abilities, suppressed by centuries of void-touched poisoning, began to return. Now you understand, Emma said to Vextal, whose instruments were detecting impossible energy readings from every human settlement his long-range sensors could reach. We didn't conquer space through superior weapons or faster ships. We did it because the universe needed guardians, and it made us to fill that role. The lead void-touched vessel finally entered visual range, and Vextal's mind recoiled from its appearance. It wasn't a ship in any conventional sense, but a living wound in reality shaped by malevolent intelligence. Tentacles of pure darkness writhed around a core that seemed to be made of collapsed starlight. Clever primates, the entity's voice dripped with ancient hatred. But even guardians can be broken. We will feast on your children's dreams and use their bones to build monuments to our glory. Emma's answer was to open herself fully to the power that humans had hidden for millennia. She became a beacon of psychic energy that could be felt across the galaxy, calling every awakened human to stand together against the returning darkness. But she wasn't alone. The Mordak pack joined their restored abilities to hers, their warrior spirits now guided by recovered wisdom. Thraktar placed one massive claw on Emma's shoulder, and suddenly Vexistal could sense the connection between them, a bridge of shared purpose that transcended species boundaries. Commander, Emma called up to his ship, would you like to help us save the galaxy? Vexistal looked at his instruments, which showed 3 more void-touched vessels approaching the system. By every tactical analysis, they were facing impossible odds. But something in the child's absolute confidence made him believe that impossible was exactly what humans specialized in. "What do you need?" he asked. "Just trust us," Emma replied. "And broadcast everything on all frequencies. The galaxy needs to see what happens when you threaten a Guardian's adopted family." As the first void-touched entity descended toward the planet's surface, reality warping around its presence like a gravitational lens, Emma rose higher into the sky. The power radiating from her small form was now visible as streams of golden light that connected to similar emanations from awakened humans across the galaxy. The Mordak pack began to sing again, but this time their harmonic frequencies carried psychic resonance that amplified Emma's abilities. Their warrior training combined with human guardian powers created something neither species could achieve alone. Vextal realized he was about to witness the true first contact between humanity and the wider galaxy. Not the fumbling diplomacy that had characterized their previous interactions, but the revelation of what humans really were beneath their deceptively normal exterior. The universe's secret guardians were about to reveal themselves, and the ancient predators that had hunted younger species since the first stars formed were about to learn why the cosmos had spent millions of years preparing for this moment. The battle between light and darkness was about to begin, and a human child who looked no older than 7 was leading the charge. As the void-touched entity launched its first attack, Emma smiled with the confidence of someone who knew that evolution had been working toward this confrontation since life first crawled from primordial seas. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity really meant.